I blame myself for putting myself in the position of going to the podium and passing along information that I did not know was false, but later learned that it was. And
are you talking specifically now about Rove and Libby? Or are you talking about the war in Iraq?
Specifically right now I'm talking about the leak episode, the Valerie Plame leak episode. And I promised White House reporters at the time, during that time period, I said, someday when this is all done, my hands were tied. The White House counsel's office said, you know, you cannot discuss this when those revelations became known that they had been involved in the leak. And I said at the time, you know, someday I look forward to talking about what I know and about you know, my involvement in defending the White House in terms of the leak episode. And so I do this in the book, but the book is, that was kind of a launching off point for the book, but the book is much larger than that. It looks really at how things went off course.
Well, let me go back to that for a second, and then we'll look at the bigger picture, because Karl Rove has responded to what you said. He says, this doesn't sound like the Scott McClellan I knew. This sounds like left-wing bloggers. And the administration has come out and said that you're disgruntled, that you're just mad because you got pushed out of a job, and this is your way of getting even by writing this book.
Actually, disappointed is the word that I would use. I'm disappointed that things went so badly off track. Disappointed that we weren't able to come to Washington and change the tone.
You have to be more than disappointed if you're pushed out of a job.
Well, actually, I talk in the book about those last 10 months as I became increasingly disillusioned. And one of the most defining, two defining moments that caused me to become increasingly dismayed and disillusioned with the way things were going in Washington, D.C. One was the revelation that I had been assured, and Karl Rove and Scooter Libby both, I asked them point blank, were you involved in this in any way? Both assured me in unequivocal terms, no, we were not involved in this. And Karl Rove even told the president, and the president and vice president directed me to go out there and also exonerate Scooter Libby on this. And that's when I went to Scooter and asked him the same question. But the other defining moment was in early April 2006. When I learned that the president had secretly declassified the national intelligence estimate on Iraq for the vice president and Scooter Libby to anonymously disclose to reporters. And we had been out there talking about how seriously the president took the selective leaking of classified information. And here we were learning that the president had authorized the very same thing we had criticized.
Did you talk to the president then and say, why are you doing this?
Actually, I did. I talk about the conversation we had. I walked on to Air Force One. It was right after an event we had down in the South, I believe it was North Carolina, and I walk on to Air Force One, and a reporter had yelled a question to the president, trying to ask him about this revelation that came out during the legal proceedings. And the revelation was that it was the president who had authorized or enabled Scooter Libby to go out there and talk about this information. And I told the president, that's what the reporter was asking about. He's saying that you yourself were the one that authorized the leaking of this information. And he said, yeah, I did. And I was kind of taken aback. And you know, that was kind of for me, I came to the decision that at that point I needed to look for a way to move on.
You didn't say anything to anybody. If you were that worried, why not speak out or resign?
Yeah, like I say in the book, I shared the view of many Americans, which we were in a post 9/11 world. And the president had a highly experienced foreign policy team, and a team that was well regarded for what it had done in Afghanistan and toppling the Taliban, and done so successfully, and a team that had taken strong action in other ways to prevent a terrorist attack from occurring again.
But you saw them going down this road, Scott,
and I gave them the benefit of the doubt, just like a lot of Americans. I wasn't sure. I felt like we were rushing into this, but because of my position and my affection for the president and my belief and trust in he and his advisors, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. And looking back on it and reflecting on it now, I don't think I should have.
But why now? I know you explained, but why now?
Because, I mean, I think it's important to today's political debate, to today's political discussion. You have both candidates. Senator McCain, just a few weeks ago, talked about the importance of ending the permanent campaign and changing politics as usual. You have Senator Barack Obama talking about changing the way Washington works, a message that is very similar to the one that the president ran on in 2000 when he talked about being a uniter, not a divider. And so I think it's timely for us to look at these issues and learn the lessons from these experiences so that we can make better decisions in the future and hopefully change Washington for the better. I don't think this is a book I could have written 2 years ago. This isn't something that, you know, these words didn't come to me easy in terms of putting them down on paper. But they were very important to openly and forthrightly share with the American people, or share with the readers as they go through this book. And I think they'll see me over time sharing that perspective in the book during all these different defining periods of the presidency. You know, I have a higher loyalty than my loyalty necessarily to my past work. That's a loyalty to the truth, and it's a loyalty to the values I was raised on. I talk about my upbringing in a political family that talked about the nobility of public service and the importance of speaking up and talking about making a positive difference. I hope that this book will help do that, and I think people that read it will see it for what it is, and they'll see that I tried to come, you know, I struggled as I went through this book process to come to grips with the realities of how things went so badly off course and what we can learn from that to help make Washington a better place for governing and for coming together to solve the most pressing priorities that face this country.
You know, Matt used the word pariah, that you'll end up having no friends on either side. Has that crossed your mind? Is that something you consider?
I was glad to hear that Dan said he still considers me a friend. I still consider Dan a friend. Yesterday, I think he was saying that Scott lost all his friends at the White House. But you know, there's kind of that old country western song, or the country western song that says, "You find out who your friends are." And I guess maybe I'm finding that out. But this is my honest perspective on how things went off track.
And finally,
that's all I can do is honestly and forthrightly express my views and let the chips fall where they may.
And if you had the opportunity to speak to President Bush, I know you have not had that chance yet, what would you say to him?
You know, that I continue to have great personal affection for him, that this book was larger than just his presidency, the purpose of writing this book. I hope he appreciates where I'm coming from. I certainly understand where he's coming from. I don't question his sincerity or authenticity, but I do think some of the policies were misguided.